Hi, I'm Perry Atkinson, General Manager here at theDove. Hey, check out our other videos and check out our website at thedove.us. Well, welcome to Focus Today. I'm your host, Perry Atkinson, and delighted to have with us today a very special gentleman. Fred Sievert's with us today. He's a retired president of the New York Life Insurance Company, which is a Fortune 100 corporation. But he's authored a very interesting book. It's entitled God Revealed. It was published this past February. And in that book, he deals with a subject that we want to talk about today a little bit on climate change. But first of all, hi, Fred. Nice to see you.
Good morning, Perry. Glad to be with you.
Well, listen, let's just get into it. You've been very concerned about climate change, and it looks like that this administration seems to be more fixed on global warming than they are solving some of the conflicts around the world. Why do you think this is such a top priority for them?
Well, frankly, I don't know the answer to that. I was pretty outraged and astounded by the comments made by the Secretary of State, John Kerry, last week in Honolulu that climate change was our biggest challenge. I could understand it if, he were the head of the Environmental Protection Agency, but he's not. He's Secretary of State at a time when the globe is in turmoil. So, I got interested in this topic back when I was in divinity school, and they had the Copenhagen Conference in 2009. And, one of the goals out of that conference was that future increases in climate, in temperatures, average daily temperatures, were to be contained within 2 degrees over the course of a 10 or 11-year period. And I thought to myself at that time, if you're standing on the globe anywhere in the world, the poles, the equator, anywhere, the average daily temperature, or the temperature during any day, is going to change by 15 degrees or more. So, it occurs to me that if you're attempting to contain that increase to 2 degrees over a 10-year period, is anyone on the planet ever really going to notice? And how can Secretary Kerry claim that this is of equal importance or greater importance than poverty or disease or starvation? It's just really outrageous to me. And I thought, even though most of my interviews are related to my book and my encounters with God that I talk about in the book, this is something I felt I really should kind of publicly express my concern about.
Well, I think you echo the concerns of a lot of people. Now we see where the president's even proposing an accord before the UN, and whether or not that's going to be constitutional or not, if he's going outside the approval of Congress. But look, this administration's bent on this thing, and I'm trying to figure out, what's the motive behind it? What are they trying to do with this? Yeah,
well, I give them the benefit of the doubt and assume that they really believe it. And I'm not a climatologist, but there are thousands of climatologists who don't agree with this. And, the answer to the question I raise about aren't these other afflictions around the globe more important, or the turmoil around the globe? Many of them will say that the short-term survival of the planet is at risk. And I simply don't believe that. And common sense tells me, and my own faith tells me, that God created this harmonious universe and the planetary system, and nothing that man does on Earth, carbon emissions or anything, is going to disrupt the harmony of that system. So for me, it's very difficult to believe. It's just common sense, even though I'm not a climatologist. It's common sense that the planetary system and the Earth is not in short-term risk of its survival, especially when nobody, as I said earlier, no one's really going to notice, even if they're wildly successful in reducing temperatures.
Yeah. The other thing that really gets me about this, Fred, it seems like all the attention's always to regulate first world countries who have been improving the environment. Then there's no effort to do anything on the countries that have no kind of environmental protection.
Yeah, and they have the largest populations of the globe as well. So if it really is true, and that's debatable, that man's creating a problem, we're just a small piece of the overall global population. Another thing, Perry, that I really would like to express is that I sort of stumbled upon something as I worked with some major universities on their development plans a couple of years ago. And that is that a very high percentage of federal grant money given for research, including climate change research, a very high percentage goes to cover overhead costs and infrastructure costs. And, having run a Fortune 100 company, I know that your overhead should not exceed 8, 10, 11% of your overall expense structure. But I think there's a financial incentive for researchers and for research universities to perpetuate this hoax of climate change and global warming. And the reason is, and it's not just my view, I have it on good sources, and also there was an article written by the Boston Globe in March of 2013 that exposed the major universities for skimming off, more than skimming off, taking between 60 and 70% of every federal grant goes toward what they're calling overhead, but in reality is probably operating costs. So Harvard, for example, in that article, takes 69% of every grant. Oh. Yale takes 66%. All the Ivy Leagues are above 60%. And, that's a financial incentive, especially when the president himself in the State of the Union address says that the debate over climate change is over, and the Secretary of State goes out and says it's our biggest challenge. Well, think about it, Perry. It's very easy to get federal grants for those research projects. Right. And that's producing significant revenue for universities, research universities around the country.
It seems, though, Fred, more and more people are waking up to the facade of this whole thing of global warming, and there is more coverage on it, but we have a long ways to go. So it appears that this is primarily a financially driven issue more than anything else.
Yeah, I think it is. And it's just tragic that, we're not dealing more effectively with so many more important and more urgent issues around the globe.
Right. Hey, I apologize for our technical problems at the beginning, but I do want to hear just quickly your personal testimony going from president of a Fortune 100 company to a seminary. What happened in your life? What happened?
Well, it's a long story that we don't have time for, but certainly if your viewers and listeners would pick up my book, they could follow it along. The book's not really memoirs. It's more of an effort to get people, the readers, to reflect on their own past and identify periods in which God was prevalent and guiding them, directing them, lifting them up through struggles, because that's the 31 stories of my book are really examples of my own encounters with God over my life. What's unique about my story is I wasn't raised in a worshiping Christian family. I'm also kind of a left-brain analytical, trained as an actuary who you would think would bias more toward science than religion. But I really had a kind of a mystical adolescent experience when I was 12 years old, where I really felt I was in the presence of God and in God's hands. And from that point forward, I just had an enduring faith and a really a hunger to learn more and to serve the Lord. And over the course of my career, I expressed those views and shared my faith with thousands of employees. And I took it to divinity school because I was, as I said earlier, I felt my faith was my spiritual education was deficient, and I wanted to move forward from my career in what has turned out to be kind of a ministry in its own right.
Wow. Is there a hunger for, when we do our research here, Fred, at the station, both radio and television, and we get a lot of calls and requests for things, it kind of boils down to two things. What is truth, and who can I trust? And it appears that, obviously the truth is the gospel, it's the Bible, and the one you can trust is Christ. Do you sense that hunger in corporate America?
Well, unfortunately not. I've tried to associate with my colleagues who are fellow Christians, and I found quite a few of them. But, as you get higher and higher up in organizations, egos get bigger and bigger. People begin to really believe and feel that they're responsible for their success. And in my case, I always felt the Lord was there guiding me, directing me, helping me to be a good role model for my employees, helping me to make strong business and ethical decisions. And more and more people need to get there. One of the things I recommend to people, Perry, especially people reading my book and using it in study groups and Bible studies and book clubs, is to think through 2 or 3 miracles in your life. Now, I'm talking about believers now, Christians. Think through 2 or 3 miracles in your life. Come up with a way to tell that story, each one of those stories, in about 2 minutes. And just have that in your hip pocket. Have that embedded in your brain. And I believe that the Holy Spirit is going to give you opportunities to express that. And it's through spiritual sharing, really, that we have the greatest impact on others. And, we just have to have the courage to do that and stand up to our beliefs and our convictions, even in the corporate world.
Wonderful. All right, the book is called God Revealed. You may want to check it out at the bookstores, Amazon, or online at Amazon or Barnes & Noble. There's a picture of it on the screen there. Those of you who are watching on the Dove TV, you'll be able to see it. Fred, I'm going to squeeze just a couple more seconds out of you before I let you go. Back to the subject of this whole issue of global warming and climate change and all of that. Do you think our planet's in trouble?
No, not at all. And I'll give you one example of a message, an email and a tweet I sent out recently. I was thinking about this harmony of the cosmos. I speak to groups, I ask them, what people will say to me when I look up at the sky at night and I see the vastness of the universe and the harmony of the planetary system. I was thinking about the sun. The sun its mass is large enough to hold 1.3 million Earths. 1.3 million. It's 93 million miles away, and yet when we step out into the sunlight, we feel the heat. And if you think about it, if it were just a little farther away, we'd all freeze to death. If it were a little closer, we'd all burn to death. So in my view, God created this system that's, miraculous and very harmonious, and nothing man's going to do, namely carbon emissions, is going to change the survival of the planet, in my view.
So what do you plan to do with this? You seem very passionate about this. You plan on more writing and speaking on this issue?
Yeah, I've been doing a lot of media interviews, TV and radio. I've been doing a lot of speaking engagements. As I said, it's kind of become a ministry in its own right. And, I'm hoping that I can impact people's lives. That's my goal. In fact, if your viewers go on to Amazon or Barnes & Noble, I actually have offered the download version, the Kindle version and the Nook version, for free. Because to me, it's not about making money. It's about getting the message out. So, I've really sort of found God's calling for me, even after this corporate career I had. And I'm very happy right now. How many people could say every day that they're really happy? And I am.
What's interesting about it is that not only are you conveying the right message on the subject, but you're also drawing attention to the fact that our Secretary of State's thinking about the wrong thing.
Absolutely. And, he can't possibly be ignoring the other aspects of what's happening around the world. I was equally astounded about 3 weeks ago when Josh Earnest, the White House press secretary, said effectively that the globe is in a state of tranquility. I mean, he's either asleep at the wheel or, he just has no comprehension of what's really out there.
Wow. Well, thanks for your time. I know that you're heavily scheduled, and I appreciate our time together today. The book is called God Revealed. You may want to check it out there, and there's a picture of it on the screen for those of you watching on the Dove TV, and check it out at Barnes & Noble or online at Amazon or at the Christian bookstores. Thank you, Fred, for your time. Thank you for your passion, and God bless you, friend, what you do and what God's called you to do.
Thanks for having me on, Perry. God bless you.
Thank you. We'll be right back on Focus Today.